This episode was recorded in November 2025. It is very fitting that Sianna McKinley is the owner of Pivot Connections because we caught up recently and realized that since this recording, there have been many pivots made by both of us. So I'm excited to present a part 2 later on this year. As an entrepreneur, I think we all are a little bit wired before we even begin this journey to make the appropriate pivots. And then that's how we get here. So enjoy the episode with Sianna and consider the pivots that you've had to make to get to where you are and how you can encourage others to do that. We not only discuss the pivots, but we are able to take working genius and apply it to paddleboarding. Enjoy the episode. Welcome to Pursuing Joy, where we discuss audacious stories of joy-infused strength. Welcome to Pursuing Joy, where we share audacious stories of joy-infused strength. I want to welcome Sianna, and go ahead and tell us about yourself, a little bit of like where you're located, the name of your business, and how Working Genius came into your sphere.
Well, hi, Julie. Thanks for having me. Yes, I am Sianna McKinley, and my business is called Pivot Connections. And our tagline is merging people with possibilities.
Okay.
And I'll tell you a little of how that all came to be. I'm in the Downingtown, Philadelphia area. It's a beautiful Chester County, and I have moved around a lot in my lifetime. So it's interesting that I have lived in like DC, I've lived in Texas, and now here I am in Downingtown. And I was actually born very close to here. So after living in like 30 different homes, I landed right back where I started from.
That is so
Very interesting.
yes.
So yeah. So that's that. Yeah, that's where I am now. And Pivot Connections was born out of the idea that I feel that no matter what space that I was showing up in, whether for work or for personal, I felt like I always kind of had that idea that, I am a coach, a teacher, um, and that's just the way I see, all of the spaces. So encouraging people right where they are and helping them get to the next level is kind of where the Pivot Connections idea started from. I was doing career coaching and working in, business development spaces. So I was doing corporate wellness, working in talent and staffing and hiring, and then into tech education. And really in all of those spaces, I was helping people, grow their businesses and make connections.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that's very true in no matter what space you're in, being able to pivot and seeing that you need to kind of make shifts is true no matter what space you're in. And that meaningful connections with colleagues, with friends, with people, with in business and in life are so key. And so Pivot Connections came out of, it was like one of those naming things through lots of sticky notes around till I found the right words. And I was encouraged by another entrepreneurial friend of mine. And she, her name is Sue. And she encouraged me to crawl, walk, run. And that's where I realized, just starting with the name would be a good place to start. And well, anyway, I know I shared a little bit about, kind of how I always showed up as a coach and a teacher. If I take you way back further, I started from a theater background. So I went to the school at the University of the Arts in
Okay.
Philadelphia, and I started out as a teacher, a theater teacher, and coach, actor, um, but went into a space of teaching in a Christian school.
Okay.
And the students that I worked with, um, I still have relationships and connections with them, even from back in the day when I did that, when I first started out of college. So, in addition to making connections, it's also mentoring others along the way. And so that's really a big part of Pivot Connections for me.
So I'm actually posting my episode with Heather Italiano
Yes.
this week. And she also was telling me about her theater background. And I was telling her, so I have a daughter, my third, that is very heavy into theater. And before she got into that, or I noticed that, I pegged her as an entrepreneur from almost the time that she could talk. So it's very interesting to me, this thread of theater with this entrepreneurial spirit. And Heather was just singing the praises of even the tools that you're given in theater development for for coaching or presenting or bringing a team together. So I found all that very interesting.
That's amazing, Julie. In fact, Heather was one of the first Six Working Genius consultants that I consulted with, and
Okay.
talked with. I think that when I discovered Six Working Genius, I realized that part of my spaces that I like to come in is to help people to become, more self-aware so they can be group
Mhm.
aware.
Okay.
And
Yes. Yes.
showing up in that space, that's where Six Working Genius was like, yes, this is exactly what I want to do because, you know, not everybody approaches things the same way. I mean, we know that they derive joy and energy in different spaces in different ways. And I think I just didn't have the language to really uh, explain what I was trying to accomplish with my, early career students. And Working Genius gave me like a whole nother lens to go back in and say, wow, like I, this person is talking, about their ideas and they're getting them out there. And
Mhm.
then, and then if you add in the idea of, for me, I should say, I'm IG. So I have the genius of invention and the genius of galvanizing. And when you put those together, it's like, wow, I have this great idea and I want to share it with you. You
Yes,
know?
very much the yes, the encourager. Yes, definitely.
Yes.
So I can
Yes.
see that.
And so
It's
when people have ideas and then like somebody else is like the genius of discernment, if you kind of take those, let's put ourselves into a corporate meeting, for example, and somebody comes up with like, oh, I think we should do this, this, and that. And another person reaches out and says, that won't work. And it's kind of like immediately exercising their gifts of discernment and exercising the gifts of, ideas and galvanizing at the same time. It's like this, there's
yes.
this complete conflict. And it was easy to see that that conflict was happening from person to person all throughout the different teams that I've been a
Mhm.
part of. And I wished I had had more of this lens earlier on in my career where I could have like lifted it above the person and say like, okay, wow, this is a really great point that you're making. And I think this person needs more information at that time in order for them to be able to make the decision. So let's step back and like look at it, maybe put that in the parking lot
Mhm.
as like an idea to go through and then go back to making sure that each person has what they need to make a decision in the moment. But not being about well, this person's disagreeing with this person. No, they're just exercising their genius, and they're conflicting together. And so I think that that's it's a powerful way to go through work or life,
Yes.
seeing that it's not me against you, or it's not, and it's much, it's Six Working Genius really gave the language to be able to have healthy conflict in those moments.
Yes.
And
Conflict that
then,
creates curiosity, I would say.
yes, yes. And equip young people also through the process to realize that um, their approach is going to help them
Hmm.
in multiple different ways. But then to slow down and see how other people are thinking or feeling in the moment is also going to help them be successful in
Yes.
that.
And slowing down is an art within itself.
Mm.
We are no longer really in a society that values that, and that speed actually causes us to have to go back to the starting point over and over again. And I have wonder and discernment as my geniuses. And so I have picked up on throughout life that people don't love that discernment coming in and saying, wanting to think things through, wanting to see down the finish line, causing a pause. And I've just realized through Working Genius, it's more the delivery of that versus it doesn't have to feel as pausing or stopping, or that your idea isn't even good, because that's not what the discerner is trying to portray. So it's that questioning again with the delivery and the communication, and having the language of where we are in the process. So I love that. I know with invention and galvanizing, when the discerner shows up in there,
Yes.
it can feel confrontational. Definitely feel confrontational.
Confrontational is a good word, but I think sometimes too, it like takes the wind out of your sails when you're like, oh,
Hmm.
fired up about this idea. And, I found that I had to select different people in the team to talk about my ideas before going to somebody who maybe had more of maybe discernment and tenacity as well, because sometimes it can be the questions in order to how to move forward. They might need
Hmm.
all the information lined up and picture the end before we even begin or start to dream about how this idea can be formed.
Yes.
um, so that was another thing that I discovered as well, is like, oh, if I go to somebody who I'm fine if we want to discern through the idea, but not land that idea into a practical nuts and bolts,
Hmm.
this is how we're going to do this. This is how the plane will be landing, type of thing, or this is how the idea is going to show up in the world. Um, for me, I felt that that was a kind of a crushing um, way of, it, for me, before understanding how these geniuses came together. It was very deflating, is the best way to put it.
So where did Working Genius show up in the brainstorming, or that the ideas for pivot connections?
So many different ways. Um, I think that, first of all, I always was the kind of the genius of invention was always kind of like, oh, if somebody needs something, we have to figure something out. So, for example, today is Veterans Day, and I know that I was very excited to find out that one of the goals of a company that I was working for in tech education was to help veterans get jobs. And I became the military liaison for veterans.
Okay.
So the way my genius of invention showed up for that was, it was like, um, okay, what are some of the unique places where we can kind of helped to form partnerships and get ahead in that area, and came up with these, an acronym, in ideas for how to, like, you know, this is the goal, and then how we get to that goal is where my genius invention comes
Mhm.
in. So it's like, okay, cool. Um, then the galvanizing part is then getting that out into the world. So
Right.
then that was a chance to kind of, I would come up with a lot of ideas of what we could do as a team, and then I would go out to the potential partners and kind of pitch it and like explain how we're going to do this and how this is going
Mhm.
to help them. And so it's like we'll get to the goal, but in order to do that, we have to kind of dream and imagine and create ideas of how we're going to do that, and then we have to find the people that connects those ideas to moving that ahead.
Mhm.
And so no matter what, whether I'm in a situation where I'm trying to, get veterans hired, or I'm trying to, help young people have the strong power skills to be able to move forward in life and work, and in mentoring and everything, there's always this idea of, here's how we're going to do this, and then here's who we need to do it for. So it's
Right.
like invent, get it out there, invent, get it out there. And that's where the dream, was born in Pivot Connections. Every time I talked about, they're like, oh, you just sparkle when you talk about, the ideas that you have, with Pivot Connections. And, you know, I think that's where it all kind of keeps showing
Mhm.
up. So this idea, came up with like a rev framework of recognize your genius. And then that's, kind of revving up teams to recognize their genius, to energize the team, the work, the space.
Mhm.
Energizing is something that, grows something to the point where it's like, yes, this is worthwhile. We're going to do this. And so, energizing a meeting, energizing a space, energizing a thought, energizing an idea, getting it out there. All of that is part of that rev the team up. And then the V stands for your values, but valuing people and valuing versatility, because that's
Mhm.
where like the pivot comes in too, where it's like we have a mission, we don't want to, go off of our mission, but as we're moving towards the mission, industry's changing, technology's changing, people are changing, everything is just like you were saying, it's this speed and pace of
Mhm.
life. But you have to recognize where that purposeful pivot is going to help you to get where you're trying to go, and being open to new ideas. This is not, well, this is the way we always did it. Well, that's not going to get you to where you need to go. That's not going to get you to your goal. So for me, so Pivot Connections is all about helping people understand when they do have to make a shift, recognizing the people, the uniqueness of their approach, being
Mhm.
self-aware, being group aware. I call it, sparking genius and building bridges is like
Okay.
two things that I look at it. It's what I do wherever I go, wherever space I show up in. So that's really the dream, talking to women, entrepreneurs, and people have run, women-owned businesses, looking at next year doing, retreats for offsite.
Okay.
So helping teams kind of see how they can spark their genius in that way. Christian school education is where I started, for my, drama teaching. I'd like to go back and do more of uh, the skills that I've developed by working in corporate and working in these many different spaces, and bring them back to the Christian school, education, and that framework, and helping, young people see how they need power skills for life and work. And that's really, I think, going to be a real theme with Pivot Connections, is going to be about mentoring other people, um, young people to have, like I said, power skills.
Right.
Um, yeah, so it's going to. I'm going to tell you that being the genius of invention, I believe it's going to shift in itself. So
Oh, yeah.
it's a framework for me to be able to go into the world. but based on the needs of the people I'm talking to, I'm very open to seeing where this is going to go, because this is the early stage where we get to crawl, walk, and then run.
I always love asking entrepreneurs about the name of their business, because there's always a lot of story and thought behind it. And I think it applies to you personally as well, because you have made a lot of pivots, and that requires reinventing over and over, right? So what has given you, is it the moves that were just a part of your environment, but what has given you the courage to pivot and make these different moves in life?
Well, I mean, courage is definitely for me. I mean, this whole podcast is called Pursuing Joy, and for me, courage is aligned with joy, where it's, personally, it's the joy of the Lord for me. It's
Mm-hmm.
He's my fullness of joy. That's who I like lean on to root myself in when I'm moving through these spaces. It gives me courage. No matter where I was, like I would get out of the car and go into like meet a new client or a new space where I get to like encourage young people, and I say, unless the Lord builds the house, the labor labors in vain. In this moment, how am I going to have courage in this moment? How am I going to like have the words to say? um and that's the way I live my space, live my life in any space,
Mm-hmm.
just life, work, doesn't matter, family. So I was standing in front of a room full of people for I was speaking for a career in a public school, and I stood in front of these students and I said, you're never stuck. You can always reinvent yourself. And it was the type of thing where there was, thousands of them. So I had to, a whole group came in every time and I was telling them all the stories. So I kept saying it over and over again. You're never stuck. You can always reinvent yourself. And I meant it. And I was not talking to myself in that moment. I was talking to them. And not but a week or so after that, I had a new opportunity. I ended up reinventing myself. And then I was talking to myself, and I didn't even realize it, in that moment. But I do think that um, the idea of pivoting doesn't always mean changing what you're doing or leaving what you're doing. It could be pivoting in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So I say that, if you're looking at it like, I'm laughing because I was a basketball player, and that is the funniest story because people have like stage fright, but I had court fright. So I would like
Ah,
sit on the bus and I was like, please don't make me play. Like, I'm okay to be on the bench. I just wanted to be with my friends. This is like, in like my junior year of high school. So all my friends were going out for basketball. So I was like, oh, I'll just go out for basketball. It's fine. I can do it with them. So I'm sitting on the bus and I'm like, okay, I gotta do this. I gotta do this. So in basketball, I think of a couple things. It's like, okay, we know we want to get the ball to the basket. That's your goal, right? And so I feel that, I learned a couple things about the pivot. It's like one,
mm-hmm.
to pivot is like you have to pivot to like block out opponents. And in life, sometimes it's like that. In a team, you're like, okay, this isn't going to work. So I got to block out our opponent. Um, so that's part of the pivot sometimes. The second part of pivot is like you have to pivot to, you know, pass the ball. And when you're passing the ball, you're only passing the ball to somebody who's prepared to receive it, is
Mm-hmm.
open to like being ready to do it. So there's like a trust. I'm going to send this ball out to you and you're going to catch it. And then you have the same vision that I do, and that is to get that ball from there into the basket. So it's like, I'm going to pass this to you. I feel like that's other part of the pivot connections, is
Mm-hmm.
that like when you're along the road of working, you're building relationships with people that have long-term benefits and vision. So when I'm
Right.
meeting somebody new, it's like, it's not just what we can do for each other today, it's what we can do for each other like along the journey of our whole experience of knowing each other, which is super cool. But
Yes.
you have to have that deep trust. You have to have that genuine connection.
Mhm.
So the passing of the ball is important for that. And sometimes it looks like, finding another resource to like, um, I can't do this, but I have a circle of mentors that I know I can trust and reach out to and pass the ball to them, saying, like, I'm not getting to my goal. How can you help me in this moment
Mhm.
to trust to get this ball to where it needs to go? But sometimes that means letting it go, giving it away, and knowing somebody else has your back and can help you kind of like take that next step.
Yes.
So reinventing yourself sometimes is about, you know, trusting the right people to help you think through the situation. Um, it's not always, getting a new job or becoming a new person. It could also be within this moment, building that genuine connection to probably
Mhm.
take you to the next step. And then the third way that you know, kind of pivot sometimes in basketball is a pivot to shoot your shot.
Right.
And that's when you like say yes to things that
Yeah.
you don't expect. Maybe they're not going to take you to where you think uh, you thought you were going to go, and all of a sudden you turn around and you're like, this small decision that I made
Mhm.
is helping me shoot my shot. And that's
Yes.
so
Right.
cool too, when that's in front of you. So I think that's what this is about for me, is that I've always wanted to kind of take my ideas, put them out the world into the world, and like, um, Pivot Connections is a beautiful kind of collaboration of many years of showing up in different spaces and
Mhm.
being able to shoot my shot,
Yes.
and get it out there.
I feel like for me, every season that I have been called into, the people or the environment has shown itself in those seasons, and that is a big indicator to me of a shift when the environment shifts or my community shifts, or the people coming into my sphere begins shifting. Tell me, okay, so we talked a little bit before about, because you and I feel like it was several months ago that we originally spoke, and you were about to launch Pivot Connections. And then I noticed that the launch of it and the advertising or putting it out there on social media took place at a different time than I expected. And so, can you tell me a little bit about how that transpired, what gave you pause, and how you kind of figured out your timing there?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of a couple things, but one thing I think that, pivots are purposeful. And this was important to me, and I felt like I needed a purposeful pause to make sure that I wasn't just kind of launching it in a direction and then I need to kind of shift again. I it wasn't in action because there was a lot of meetings happening and I was talking to just some different people. So I wanted to explore the angles that were out there, before just kind of, you know, telling the world what I was doing. So I used that time to reach out to some mentors, to reach out to some past clients, people I trusted. And I had a lot of like amazing power coffees of one-to-ones, talking to people and using the working genius as kind of asking them like how do they approach things, and what is their needs in their company and in educating youth. And I talked to leader of career technical education in our area. I talked to um, women entrepreneurs and staffing and hiring companies that I trusted. I talked to, it was so interesting. Even a girlfriend of mine that is, they launched a beautiful training, online e-training that I was part of. And it was training manufacturing supervisors how to have the people skills, but also the, blending that with the technical and lean training for manufacturing supervisors. And so it was a beautiful combination because the business owners are instructional designer and 40 years of manufacturing expertise, and blended that together into an online training that was very unique. And so my galvanized side of things, after I did the videos, said, well, how are you going to get that out there? They're like, well, we have a website. And I was like, oh, that's not going to do it.
Right.
Networking and talking about it and getting it out there. And they, zero galvanizing and then no interest
Mhm.
in that. So I was like, well, wait a second. This could be a cool thing. Why don't I just help get our word out there? So now I found myself on a different journey where I was studying about manufacturing supervisors and what is needed in those specific skill sets and how this training really would make a huge impact in that world where a lot of people are um, excellent technically. They get given a leadership position as a manufacturing supervisor and then not given the training and the tools that they need to succeed.
Mhm.
And so I was like, huh. So yeah, meeting with a whole bunch of manufacturing people tomorrow. So um, it's a very interesting journey. Like I said, I maybe the genius of invention, or maybe it's my genius of gathering. I don't know. But it seems that I'm open to saying, like, well, I've never done this before. So let me just see if I can figure this out. And that's
Yes.
kind of been my
I'm
that's kind of been my journey. Because, graduated with a theater degree. So
yeah,
um
I can totally relate to that. My competencies are galvanizing and invention, and so, maybe that's where but I have learned, like, even with starting Enjoy Workforce Solutions, I'm very open. Like, I have an idea of where I want to go, but I'm very open to where this leads, and I have been encouraged to get into hustle culture, and it's a math equation. It's the numbers. Like, the more people you get in front of, the you just have to figure out how many people you have to get in front of to get the contract. And I have been tempted to go that route, and I do see that as successful, but that's not how I want to continue my success. That is not
mhm.
the kind of lifestyle that I want to set myself up for. And so I have just taken on, and the what you were saying about, the Lord has to build it. I was literally looking at that this morning, and just I have just taken it in stride as being entrusted with what I've been given in the moment and doing my best for that, and then doing my best with the next thing, and things like what you're saying have just shown up of, like, why am I having this conversation and how is it leading to this next thing? But it's something that is unfolding versus the hustle, right? It just is coming to be, and I wasn't sure if I believed that or not. But that is how I want to operate. So if that's the way I want to operate, then I have to align with that in my belief system as
I
well.
feel that so deeply. You have no idea how much I'm just like so with you on that, because it's just interesting because I was saying before that if I roll up my sleeves and figure it out, well, I can try that. I can try this, Um, and I went from uh, um, the the business development numbers crunching, you have to
Yes.
have a certain, you know, you have to have a certain amount of outreach in order to have this. You have a, it's all about the KPIs and the metrics and things like that. And I just, it's very much like, if I could just describe it, it's so funny because I was just talking about manufacturing and maybe my brain's just like kind of, but I all of a sudden have that like, have you ever heard of the, yeah, I Love Lucy, like how it has there's the there's this amazing episode of I Love Lucy where she decides she's gonna just, work in a chocolate factory.
Yes, yes,
And
yes, yes.
yes, okay, so as the chocolates are coming down the factory, it's like all of a sudden what they're doing is they're turning up the belt just a little bit.
Mhm.
So she thinks, oh, I have to just wrap these and they'll be fine, and she's with her friend, she can do this. And then all of a sudden the belt gets faster and faster, and she's like eating the chocolates and trying to stop. This is how I'm gonna solve this problem because it's like it's the funniest episode. But I feel
Mhm.
like in a way, it's like that's the way it's felt for a lot of people working this season from like 2020 to
Oh,
2025.
yeah.
It's like the belt just gets faster and faster, and we're just all like, okay, fine, I'll just work like this, and so it's like everything gets faster and faster, and then you start to eat the chocolates and you're like, oh my gosh, like, how did this happen? I am in this like complete, like, I'm on this fast moving train and I can't
Mhm.
get off. I can't get off. And that's the way business was feeling. And it's like, can you imagine being, working from home and feeling like the walls are closing in on
Oh,
you?
yeah.
I felt like that. I've had that feeling before. And I don't think I'm alone in
Oh,
that.
and you're told that's success.
Yes. Yes. And that's success. And so, it's funny. In 2020, I had this, we had 60% of our clients, and you'll get this because it's like staffing and hiring. So it's like
Mhm.
60% of our clients are like, oh, we're closing our doors. Okay. So I needed to pivot. I needed to find something. So I found an amazing opportunity for medical, which was, essential and very important. And so we were able to like pivot and build a huge contract going in a different direction. It really helped us succeed, which was awesome. But I built an amazing friend and client out of that stage
Okay.
because we did it together. And it was like, oh gosh, we had to reinvent, or she had to rebuild a whole division in her company, and we needed to the essential workers. So it was like a win-win situation, but we're
Mhm.
still really close, and stay connected, as I see her as another one of my like circle of mentors of people that I would trust and throw the ball to
Right.
talk to. But I just remember we did like walk and talks just to kind of like calm our minds down and be able to like talk about what our next step is going to be. In this contract and what we're doing. So like even for clients, and I made it my goal to I called it my unsales challenge, and it was all about how to find out first of all who is um, my decision makers that I had a connection with,
Mhm.
clients. What do they need in this moment? Um, what gets them excited about their day? Uh, what do they what's their favorite drink or something that they enjoy,
Yes.
how do they like their coffee type of thing, but truly it was like, how much can I get to know the people I'm working with in a deeper level. And so yeah, I made this whole like list of things that I was going to say, like, okay, I'm going to connect with my clients, but without the idea of that pressure of business. They don't need that.
Mhm.
They just needed me. And what came out of that is like these deeper trusted relationships that morphed into, not only did they trust me to do business for that business I was working for, but then in my next, when I did do a shift and ended up leaving that company, um, which was not my choice. So that was a whole another, kind of
Mhm.
pick yourself up and say, okay, well, that didn't happen the way I thought it was going to happen. Um, so how can I, move forward from that? But it's those long-term trusted relationships that will carry your career,
Mhm.
and can morph into, hey, I passed the ball to you once and I'll pass the ball to you again, so I trust you.
Yes.
And I think that's pretty a cool way of looking at business too, is that we are all individuals, on this journey. And it's not just what can you do for me lately. I feel like a lot of times that's part of that fast conveyor belt. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
you just did this and this. Great, great job, great job. What are you going to do for me this week? And that's exhausting.
Yes.
It's a
It is
hard,
exhausting.
hard thing. And I get it. I get that business needs to move forward and things like that. But missing how your team shows up and who they are, and what excites them about the work, I think is a real opportunity for business owners and leaders to see it differently. Because when people feel like they're seen, heard,
Mhm.
supported, trusted, um, business happens anyway.
Yes.
But when it's like from the top saying, we need to do this faster, we need to do this more, we do, and this is the way we want to do it.
Mhm.
Usually it's like that's always not gonna land
Yes.
the way they think it's gonna land.
If someone's in their joy, they're going to align with that goal anyways. And,
Exactly.
I'm noticing just these conversations that I have. If someone has been referred to me, it is so seamless, and uh, you're not selling any. Someone else has already done has already sold you for for yourself. I'm just like, oh my goodness, I'll have this whole presentation, ready for this person, and then they're like, this person said this, and this person said you did this, and this is what I want that what you did, and they've already got it, and it's just it
Yeah.
such a different feeling, such a different process, a different conversation, and the kind of conversations I want to be in versus I have to meet this amount of meetings or conversations or things, or I have to have this much clientele to make this happen. It's just a completely different perspective. Um, on a
Yeah,
kind of
referrals are beautiful. It's like, yeah, you pass the ball and you can shoot your shot,
yeah,
and you're set
yes,
up for success, which is
exactly,
awesome.
exactly that. And
Yeah.
yes, I love how that unfolds. In kind of a similar context, but different. I have recently we my four daughters and I we just did a traditional Sabbath that started on a Friday at 6 p.m. and ended at Saturday at 6 p.m. Uh, and it really revolutionized the weekend and the start of this week, because yeah, we're on Tuesday, so we did this for the first time ever on Friday, and the slowness that took place, and the contentment that we were, without feeling like we have to entertain for the weekend, or we have to accomplish this. I have to accomplish making sure I spend time with each individual, like all this pressure that sometimes I felt like take complete control of the weekend and make it as phenomenal as possible. And plus I have them only 2 weekends a month. So there's always been this pressure. And I, just by resting, all of that took care of itself, and then it opened up the week in a completely different way. And honestly, when you were talking about your business and how you were going to launch at this time but decided to take it, that's what it felt like to me, like your business was having a Sabbath so that it could unfold in the best way possible. Um, how do you implement, and you're also in a different stage of life. So I'm curious about this, and you know your children are grown. How do you implement rest in throughout as you're starting this business and in a different phase of life?
Yeah. First of all, I love what you did with your kids. They'll never forget that. I mean, you can run around and entertain them, but quality time with you and then showing them how to find rest,
Mhm.
especially rest in the Lord and rest to take a Sabbath. Um, wow, that is that's a powerful life lesson that you gave to them, a gift, because the world doesn't really tell you to take
Mm.
breaks and rest, especially in work. And so that is something that you really that will show up in your long-term relationship with your kids. Because now my kids are adults, so it's Veterans Day again. So my husband's a veteran, and my son is a veteran from the Air Force, and my other son is active duty right now in the Navy, and so he's overseas.
Oh,
And so
wow.
part of my purposeful pause was quality time with
I do
family.
remember that. Okay, okay. All right, I do remember the timing of this.
Yeah, I needed to shut down. I needed to just be present, and enjoy time with him because I knew it was going to be fleeting and he would just going to be gone, and then I would have to, and get used to that new way of communicating with him through, just
Mhm.
uh, hear a message here and there and realizing I'm not going to have that kind of time. So I'm really glad I did that. And I also I love lakes, and that's my there's a local lake near me, and I got a paddle board. I got two paddle boards, and I did that for a reason as well. It was kind of like I'm not a very I'm not about like, oh, I need the latest gadget for this and that, but I loved paddleboarding, and I decided if I had two, then it would be kind of like I could bring a friend,
Mhm.
and it could be we could do this together. And so, and my husband and I did it as well. But there's something about, you know, and even out of the six working genius, it's very, very funny because paddleboarding is so much fun, but it's an inflatable paddleboard.
Mhm.
So you have to do a lot of steps to get it from the car to the lake, into the lake, and be successful to paddleboard. There's a lot of steps. And
Okay.
so
Yes, keep going. I have got to add on to this because you are speaking my language right now, but keep going.
So I was such a hot mess the first time I did this, and I was just like, oh, I was with a friend and we were trying to like figure out how the pump worked, and then I thought I got it like all blown up, and then I like went out to the lake, and like all of a sudden it's like kind of like bending, and I'm like, oh, I don't think
Yep.
I got this blown up for enough to like actually sustain this. And once you get an inflatable paddleboard like to its full inflation, it's almost like you're on a full hard board.
Yes.
And it's safe and it's relaxing and it's wonderful. And I love it. And it's time to, meditate and rest with the Lord. I love it. It just sparks all joy in life. But when you're on a paddleboard and it's kind of bending, where it's kind of like you're not sure if it's gonna like get you there, or it's gonna is you're gonna be safe, are you gonna be, it's like that feeling. It's like, well, should I just push through and just kind of stay on my paddleboard and like I'll figure it out, or should I go all the way back to the shore, find the pump again, start the car again, trying to like add the more air, um and I say that because each time I went out, it got easier and easier. But I found that the person I was with either added something with their unique genius that made the whole kind of collaboration of how we're going to get into the water smoother and faster. And it was like we needed each other, and our strengths were like meeting right
Yes.
then and there. And then it was like, oh, this is great. Um, And that Sabbath, I laid on my paddleboard, I looked up, and I
Yes,
saw
it's
the
the best.
clouds, and they move. The clouds move.
Mhm.
Who knew? I I joke about that because you know, I feel like it's been a whirlwind. It's like being a mother, working full time, doing all this stuff. And like all of a sudden you just like blink and you're laying on your paddleboard and the clouds are moving and you realize your kids are adults. You're in this new stage of life. Like if you don't if you don't stop and just take that purposeful pause to breathe, it all just happens around you. And I don't know. I think that that paddleboard just made me think about. I was so thankful I have taken that time to like slow down, and
Mhm.
um, I encourage many people to kind of find that thing that is your Sabbath, your rest, um, and take it just
Mhm.
to you know before you kind of launch into something. Um, but as you were saying too, just because you had that fast pace and that, you know, um, idea that business has to move at a speed of light and you have to have, like what corporate America or what, I don't know, Silicon Valley or whatever, the tech
Right,
world says, everything's changing, people's changing, everything's, yeah, keep going, go, go. It doesn't mean you have to live your life like that. And it doesn't mean you
right.
have to work your business like that. And it doesn't mean you have to bring that energy into your next stage. So
Yes.
I
Yes.
think that's going back to, being a mom and having adult kids and being in a different season. Um, I'm taking every opportunity that I've had and I see it as, it was a part of my journey. It was purposeful. I met the right people. I did the right thing. I helped the right client. And I will glean all of that and keep, growing in the right direction I'm supposed to direct, my next path. So it's
Yes.
like, in him, there's fullness of joy.
Yeah.
And, um, you know, I am actually thinking about more time in the classroom, more time with young people, and even resparking some of more of my going back to some of the coaching, teaching, even in the theater and the drama space, and then bringing power skills together. Because I have this kind of idea of how that self-aware to be group aware and
Yeah.
bringing more of what where I started from and bringing that into the space too.
Mhm.
Um,
Yes.
I
Know
think that's a big
thyself.
part of it.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
That
Yes.
Um, so it's but so so I'm my house is on the market. It has been. That's another place where I'm just having to trust and believe. So that to say, there's nothing on my walls except for literally this my background for the podcast, and this joy has. It's right like in the angle of where I have my quiet time, and I feel like it has been taunting me for most of the
Mm.
year, as in are are you do you really believe that? Are you obtaining that? Are like in this temptation to strive towards that and just I is now I'm realizing it just unfolds. Like working genius is what told me it told me it took me a minute, a good 6 months to drink the Kool-Aid and believe it, that joy matters, that it's not just an abstract thing, but it actually leads to productivity. But it is a productivity that comes out of a stillness or a rest. It's something that bubbles up and doesn't exhaust you. And so that as I've been pursuing joy and listening to these pursuit of joy conversations, it has felt weighty on me as though am I living, believing, and doing this? And so I just in the last 6 weeks, I have felt it. That to say that joy has become, it has, these conversations have developed it, and also just the it is now resonating out of me, and realizing one of the things I've had, several of the facilitators on here talk about wonder and discernment, my geniuses, and how they have experienced them. And I've interviewed people with wonder and discernment, and so I have experienced it myself, and it's very insightful. I'm like, okay, this is what people are. I haven't really experienced myself a lot, right? Like, having it come back at me, I'm like, oh, okay. And it has just infused even more so that joy matters, and that showing up in your geniuses is going to lead you into self-awareness and bettering yourself, and also the team. And so I love that. Um, and interestingly enough, so I have a paddleboard. Paddleboards are my favorite hobby activity. And I happen, we typically take it out into the ocean. The beach is about a little less than 2 hours away, and that laying down and then like turning your head towards like the end of the earth is what it feels like, and feeling like you're a part of the water and the endlessness of everything. And then, yes, the clouds moving above you is one of the most surreal experiences. But recently, I went to a lake, and I just now, I've had my paddle board for almost 2.5 years, maybe 3 years. In the last 6 months, have gotten a electric pump. So I was using a hand pump. So it was an ordeal.
Work. Yeah.
And my hand pump recently got a slit in it, like a little puncture in it. So it took, and for whatever reason, I just was like, I have to be on the water right now. I have to have that experience that you were just talking about. So I was not going to give up. And my oldest daughter and I worked for almost 2 hours to make sure this paddleboard did not bend in the water. And but both of us, because I've had her take the working genius, we both our frustration is tenacity. And I just pointed out to her, when the goal feels so necessary and so needed, in the sense of what the result, not in the sense that the pressure of it, but because this is what you ultimately want to accomplish. I'm like, that grit and that tenacity comes out, and you work through it, whether it's a frustration or not. So it was just interesting when you brought up the paddleboard, because I was able, I love that. And I hugely saw our working geniuses in that, as we were coming together to make that happen. But also that tenacity, that end result that you want, can show up, even though it is a frustration, even though it can show up in a joyful way when you're going towards something that you truly believe in and truly want and desire. And the team, even if that's not, even on a team, when it's the visionary, you're going towards their goal. If you are able to bring your joy and what fulfills you into that, to make it happen, it just works.
Yeah. Yeah, being on a team where people like celebrate your geniuses, it really makes a big difference. I know I was in an amazing like remote corporate position, and one of the, I told you about the being a military liaison, and one of the military leaders said to me, "You're like." This is the term siloed, right, is a big thing where everybody's kind of like in their own, especially when it's a fully remote company.
Mhm.
Um, she said, you're creating like almost like um, river channels. I love the way she put that. So it's
Oh.
like breaking down barriers so that the water can flow. So I was like figuring out, well, this team doesn't talk to this team and they don't talk to this team, and that's why the work's not getting done. So how do we
Mhm.
kind of break through those channels and let the water flow a little bit? And that's how my galvanizing came out, is I was able to like kind of figure out like who wasn't talking to who and how we needed to kind of get those channels going. So a lot of times I think being that kind of, I love that concept of the river flowing
Yes.
between teams and between people, and so that's another way that I see, pivot connections being kind of like that river channel to help teams be able to kind of break down some of the barriers that are keeping them from being apart and building those necessary connections to really make the work flow. So I think that's another angle
Yes, I can see
that
that. I love
that
that.
brings that space. But I would say, also just helping people get unstuck and
Oh,
seeing
yes.
the gears turning. I love that about Six Working Geniuses, the gears coming together. It's like, that's, to me, I see that as, you know, us rubbing against each other, or, iron sharpens iron, as they say, in scripture. But just that we can trust each other, build meaningful connections, and show each other that what you bring to the table is just as valuable as what they bring to the table, as what, you know and I've seen that when you have that aha and that spark, when
Mm.
especially a young person or somebody in their early stage of career has this aha that like they never saw that about themselves before. And that happened to me after I did that first Working Genius um, presentation as a keynote speaker. And I had one of this young man run in and say, "Oh, I didn't realize that you showed me I have the genius of discernment. I didn't see that before. I didn't understand that, where that came in." Um, and he was just all so excited about
Mhm.
recognizing one little genius in himself. And I was touched by that. I loved seeing the people like take those tools and use them and be more collaborative together. I had them in their tables to see if they could flip over their card and spell widget. So see if they had the different
Oh.
voices like at the table, that they could make sure that they had the right voices when they were making decisions and doing a
Oh,
project-based
wow.
learning activity. But afterwards, I found out that the man who ran up to me, um, he was in his early career, but that he really struggled in high school, and he did not see himself as a genius in terms of, he didn't see his value or his gifts wasn't as clear, and he struggled a lot through school. And so that same person, I didn't know that background about him because I had just met him in that moment, but I found that afterwards, and just to see that gear turn and that aha moment was just a beautiful way for me to see
Yes.
this in
Yes, I
full
love that.
motion. Mhm.
Yeah, okay, and I've gotta keep that in my back pocket, that
Yeah.
flipping over and spelling with the team that's there. I love that. That is your invention right there.
Yeah.
Uh, so, okay, I'm totally going off to left field, but and this is my wonder and discernment. And so this is part of this is what I have the feedback I have received from others about wonder and discernment is that we ask a lot of questions in our like we do ask questions in general, but we're asking and thinking about things a lot more in our head than what we're saying out loud. So this is a question that's in my head, and I'm going to just say it out loud. And
Go
you can
for
tell
it. I
me
love it.
if you're good with this. So I am currently, I feel like I think I'm coming out of it, but I have been in a wilderness season probably for about the last 18 months. The longest I think I feel like I've been in one of these seasons. Uh, and I definitely feel like now that I'm seeing things unfold, okay, I understand the preparation that was needed here. Do you have an example of a wilderness season and where you see the preparation now or see why it took place?
Yes.
I
Yes,
know
I
that
definitely.
that's going. I
Yeah, no, I definitely have wilderness seasons. Um, I'm gonna say here's a wilderness season that I had. So I had this opportunity to, and I'm hesitant. I'm trying to decide if I want to go
I
because I know we're
understand. I know
wrapping up. So I'm
this is
thinking, well,
why I don't ask these
how do I
questions
wrap up
usually
my
because
wilderness season without talking too much? But um, I think you're called into things and we're called out of things.
okay.
And so for me, I was called into an opportunity to work in a nonprofit in tech education, and I was all in, and I was so determined to make a difference and to work with incredible students that were just taking such brave steps to better themselves, prepare themselves for a career. In order for me to do that, I had to kind of go through the winter of taking the train at like 5 in the morning. It was freezing outside, like so cold. And I was taking the train to go into the space. And every time I was in the space, I loved being with the students and seeing their aha moments and creating new ways of we had spaces where we had people coming in and partners to come to meet with them, and anything that had to do with making the space like come alive, engaging. It was all about
Mhm,
engaging others and do it. All of that was like something that was made me feel so alive. But there was another angle of this job is that I had to do, I mean, it was a lot of projects. So I was like leading projects, I was strategically planning. So it was just heavy on tenacity,
really.
heavy on finish this, get to the next project, finish this, get to the next project. And so what happened was it was like all of my ideas that I wanted to like had to kind of put on the shelf because there were so many tenacity projects to do. So I found myself in the wilderness where it's like I was loving what I was doing, but I was also feeling like I was just constantly under the gun and not able to get to the next thing or take that breath. And so taking the train um into the city, I was praying deeply like every day, just like, Lord, give me the strength to do what I needed to do today, hit this, do this or whatever. And it stretched out to the point where it was like I had stretched myself too thin. I had stretched myself to the place where I was like trying to accomplish these things, but I realized I was working in my working frustrations, and therefore it that was part of that wilderness season. And it was a lot of time just I would just like be singing, just kind of, I need you in this moment, I need you every hour, I need you, like. And making the decision to leave that job was really hard for me because I had built trusted relationships in that
Mhm,
space, and I had so much joy working directly, with these students. And I had the vision and the long-term plan to help them succeed too. And so it's stepping out of that was part of that wilderness as well, because it was like I was leaving them behind. And that part was really painful. Um,
mhm,
but that was part of that also, that purposeful pause was like, okay, I was clearly called in and I was clearly called out. It was time to step away. And I knew that. Um, that opened up another season for me to care for my mom in this stage
okay.
of her life too. That's another part of my season. Um, but that wilderness was, I think, I was just stretched too thin, and I was leaning heavily on, um, you know, I was working out of my zone for part of that. So
Right.
it was hard. It's really
Yes.
hard. But he is so faithful, and I found so much joy, reminding me that I love being a coach, a teacher, and being with students and seeing the aha. And it made me realize that, like, I don't think I'm supposed to jump back into a full corporate position where I'm helping the numbers grow and things like that. I'm designed to be in a place where I can encourage others where they are and give them those aha moments, build meaningful connections, and helping them pivot through life. And that's what
Yes,
I
I
want to do.
think that that is so true that you are exactly where you were supposed to be. And I think it is, I personally, even though it may feel a little bit more hurtful if you're like pushed out, but I feel like it's easier when the choice is made for you and you get an ending becomes comes because of that. But when you're actually having to make the choice and exit and and make that in a sense of, am I doing the right thing versus the thing is being done to me, and those those 3 a.m. wake ups, like, this must be done, this must be done. And you're like, is that true? Is this really, am I really supposed to exit? Am I not supposed to do this? It is a struggle, but hindsight is 2020, and you can eventually see the fruits of
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
and I
I'll leave you with this thought. I know we have to wrap up. There's this amazing story about Elijah. I don't know if you have this, if you know this story at all, but um, I'm gonna make sure I get it right. But I believe he was called to the. Um, now in this moment, I'm like, was it Elisha or Elijah? Okay, well, let's just say it's a lie. Let's call him Eli. Anyway,
I
so
think it's
he
Elijah. I think I know where you're going. So go ahead.
he was called to the brook of Kidron. And it was like, he had to leave, he had to go to the brook. And in that brook, God provided for him both, food to eat and water to drink and everything that he needed. And
Hmm.
and he had to step out to go to the brook in the first place. And then when I read the next part, he's like, and the brook dried up. It's like, well, no, no, no. God called you to the brook. Like, why would you dry up? And then next thing you know, he's called to this widow's home, and in the widow's home, he goes to her home, and she thinks she's at the end. She thinks she's going to starve. Her son is not going to, survive. And it's like he's called there to like serve her in a new way. And he gets also, God provides for both of them and all of
Hmm.
them right then and there. But it's like, you're called in, you're called out. And like, I just feel like that's very clear along the way, and careers are part of that. Sometimes you're called in to step into something, and it could be something small too. Like it could be saying yes to a podcast, it could be saying
Yes.
yes to um, and we always have two ways of looking at things. We can say, you know, I'm on my own and I gotta get through this and I've got to figure this out. Like you're kind of feeling like I don't know what's next. Or you can say like I'm being called to this and God's gonna equip me in this space to keep going, and He's gonna provide. He already has a new home for you. He already has your new plan. He already has, what's gonna happen with your business and with this podcast and what you're doing, and keep going, because I've learned so much from your podcasts, and I love listening to all the unique ways that people are using the working genius. And he gave you this idea. He called you to start pursuing joy on YouTube, and I'm sure it was a learning journey for you
Oh
too.
yeah.
And so I don't know how this is going to continue to shape what you're doing in your business and everything, but I know that you definitely have encouraged me.
Well, thank you so much. And these conversations have, it is fascinating what people are doing with Working Genius in all the different ways. And everyone has provided this, a string of encouragement in just the variety of what can be done. And then this podcast in and of itself is, I get to be connected with people like you, and it has provided these river channels.
Mhm.
I'll
River
say.
channels.
So
Love it.
it has been phenomenal to get to know everybody this way, and the virtual aspect, it has kept people in my home, right, while I'm working from home, and so that has been a huge blessing. So thank you so much for saying that and sharing your insights. What is the best way to get in touch with you if people need to pivot?
I love that. Yes. If you're looking to energize your team, you want to help recognize your genius, energize your team, your space, and if revving up a team sounds like something you'd like to do, or if you just want to get in touch with me about how what we can do to collaborate together, you can go to pivotconnections.com to see my website, or you can email me at Sianna at pivotconnections.com. And also, please reach out to me on LinkedIn, because I have to say, that is the only social media I'm really focused on right now.
Okay.
I stepped away from all the social medias to be more present with people, and I do go on LinkedIn, so you can reach me there, and also by email. And that's the best way to get a hold of me.
All
But
right.
I have like a form on there. So if you are curious about how I can kind of help your team get unstuck, you can send that form right through the pivotconnections.com.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a beautiful day, Julie. Thanks for
When's the last time you were working and completely lost track of time? Recently, this happened to me at a coffee shop. I was planning to work for a couple of hours, and 6 hours later, I realized I was still there. Not because I had to be, but because I was working in my working genius. What if more people got to work that way? That's the idea behind Enjoy Workforce Solutions. Recruiting built around how people are wired to work, so the right role energizes them and your team feels the difference. Discover what that could look like for your organization. Visit Enjoy Workforce Solutions.